Greetings everyone, my name is Tony Holowitz, and in this tutorial I want to talk to you about sort of the tipping point that got me to really look a little bit closer at Link2Quotes. Link2Quotes is software that allows you to create quotes in Act software. It's a standalone product in the Linktivity series, but it's something that I had looked at and it didn't really fit into my business. And let me just describe that a little bit. So I'm a partner with a company called Keystroke, and Ken Quigley at Keystroke has developed this tool called Link2Quotes. But in my past, my experience has been a lot of times when you create quotes, I've always been of the opinion that because I use QuickBooks and have been a QuickBooks user and teacher for years, I would always think of quotes as something that I would create in QuickBooks. Now, the downside of that quote is this is a sample quote that you see on my screen that would be very common that you might use in QuickBooks. And really, it sort of has an item, a description, a quantity, rate. But when I'm in the service industry, I sell Act software, I sell training services. So the nature of what I do, quotes didn't really work for me. They just didn't fit my business model. So if someone wanted to buy Act software, I would refer that to my colleague at Keystroke, a woman named Shannon, who's been helping me for years, and she would create this quote and send it out to the client. So recently I had sort of an experience with another client who wanted to use quoting software, and I said, okay, let's see what we can do with this. And the nature of that person's business is they created a quote that didn't look like what you see on the screen, but they created a quote that was something closer to this, where what they would do is they would go into Microsoft Word, they'd create a quote, they might save it as a PDF, but it was a little bit more the look of a letter is the best way I can describe it, just a common letter, where they'd put some information in, like the ice cream information here, they'd have some text, they might have terms and conditions, late fees, all kinds of information in there, but it really was like a letter quote. It was a Word document quote, and that's how they set it up. So the dilemma I had is this kind of quote, which for me as a service business, I find this would be a better quote to have. So when you look at quotes in Linktivity and the way they're set up, and this is Linktivity and Link2Quotes, the quotes look like this. So what do? How do we turn Linktivity into a software program that someone in the service industry can use? So late on a Friday afternoon, I had a conversation with Ken Quigley at Keystroke, the developers of this quoting software. And I said, the dilemma you face is if you're in the service industry, this kind of quote doesn't really work. And I said, I feel like we're missing a large market here. And at the time, Ken was sort of funny where he said, he's swamped with projects and he can't really invest his time right now on this idea. So that was late on a Friday afternoon. By Monday, Ken had developed a quote that was more for the service industry. And to show you what I mean by that, these are layouts that Ken developed for Linktivity and Link2Quotes. Before, the default looked very much like a quotation, like a typical quote you'd see in something like QuickBooks. But what he then did is he went in and he created 2 service templates. Now, when I initially looked at these service templates, I was struck by the fact that they weren't quite what I thought they needed to be. So for example, when I looked at this service classic quote, it just didn't cut the mustard. It just wasn't there. Now keep in mind, I had a customer that wanted a quote that looked a little bit more like this. So then I said, okay, wait a minute, can you go in and customize this? And the beauty of working with these quotes is that you can customize them. You can get them to look more like a service quote and something that's closer to a Word document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of that. Link2Quotes allows you to modify the layout to make it look the way you want it to look. And when I say that, primarily I'm talking about colors, things that show up inside the quote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and you'll notice that I have a quote called Service Classic Test B. Now, I know this is sort of an obscure name, but I wanted to show this to you, and I'm going to come up here on this tab, and this is an example of the quote. So when you compare this to the Microsoft Word document I had shown you earlier, it's getting pretty close. There are a few things that are slightly different. One is up here in the gray area. You'll see that this description and amount has a gray background, and also the products that they can choose from also have a gray background. Now, personally, I don't really mind that. I like the looks of that. But the dilemma is this: what if you don't? What if you don't want these gray backgrounds here or there? So what I did is this. I created another layout called the Service Classic Test C No Gray Background, or BR. And I'm going to click on this to modify it. And what I want to show you is this. When you come inside these layouts, the layouts can allow you to change colors of certain aspects of what you see. Because what I did is I went in and I changed some colors to eliminate the background of gray. So you'll notice, I believe it was this one right here, the product background color. I changed it from gray to white. In other words, you wouldn't see anything. So now when we go up and we use this as the layout, let me show you what it looks like. It's primarily, I'm just taking out the gray. So I'm going to come back to the edit layout. I'm going to get out of here for just a minute. I'm going to go back to the quote. And the beauty of the quote is that you can now come in here and you can edit the quote. And by editing it, you can simply add it to a different layout. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to choose this layout. I'm going to come down and click on Save, and then I'm going to click on Preview. And you're going to see it's the exact same information, but now this area doesn't have a gray background. This area doesn't have a gray background. So what that's allowed me to do is customize this quote and get it just that much closer to that Word document quote I showed you earlier. Now, the one thing I'm going to talk to them about at Keystroke is it possible to get this subtotal and total not here, but up here underneath this area? So that will be the next thing I'll discuss with Ken and his staff over at Keystroke. So the point I'm trying to make is this. You can modify these layouts to get them really close to what it is you're trying to work with. Will it be perfect? Most likely not. Is it going to be 80 or 90% of what you want? Most likely, yes. And now that you know that, and now that you know you can adapt these quotes and customize them to make them look a little closer to what you're using today, all of a sudden this opens up Link2Quotes as a potential product that you could use for quoting things. And some of the other things that come with that product, some of the tools that come with it, might just make it worthwhile for you. So customizing Link2Quotes can be the way you can turn this into what you need for your business. Anyway, if you have questions, please feel free to reach back to me. I'd be more than happy to try to help you out and help you customize a layout. Okay, my friends, thank you very much. Be well. Bye now.